I didn't expect to start another report by taking off my mask, but here we are again. Another year of hard learning, another year of loss, another year's worth of opportunity to reimagine. I feel all of those things, and maybe you do too. Mission Amp lives in the both and. Yes, we're tired of this. And yes, there is hope in this work God has given us. We've experienced the loss of beloved team members, and we are hopeful about the gifts of our newest colleagues in our work. We grieve the loss of practices that don't work anymore, and we embrace new ways of being church in the world. It's a messy time, and much beautiful ministry begins with mess. Last year, this report was framed by the markers of vital congregations. They are adaptable, faithful, evangelistic, missional, generous, hospitable, collaborative, well-run, and willing to have hard conversations. We talked about the work the Mission Amplification team was doing to help congregations develop practices that made them stronger in those traits. Nothing we've learned in the past year has changed our sense that those ways of being are essential. But it's a pretty long list, particularly for tired leaders. No church excels at all of them, of course, but no church could possibly be working on getting better at all of them all the time either. So we encourage you to focus on what is most important, and remember, you are not working alone. By working together, we get to learn from each other and make the whole diocese and our communities healthier. Something we've seen over and over is that good leadership is essential. To my clergy sisters and brothers, I say that your leadership matters. The Mission Amp team is constantly curating resources from across the church and facilitating conversations among leaders to support mutual learning. We're always looking for the best of the best. But I also want to say to my priest colleagues that it's not all about us. Thanks to the work of people like the Canon for Transition Ministry, Kalara Johnson, the Canon to the Ordinary, Christine Falstick, and the regional bishops, priests come and go, as they should. And thanks to lay leaders, the work of the churches continues. Healthy congregations have shifted from clergy-led to lay-led and clergy-supported. That's not just a change in language, it's a change to the underlying culture. Whether clergy are full-time, part-time, or provide only a sacramental presence on Sundays, it is the lay people who are leading the work of the church, which means that developing and supporting lay leadership is always a major focus of our work. As we reported last year, in late 2020, we created the position of area missioner, whose work is to empower and equip the baptized to do the ministry of the church in an assigned geographical area. We began with Andrew Terry, a full-time missioner in the Central Convocation, and William Yana, a half-time missioner in the Southeast Convocation. We look forward to expanding this work further in 2022.
A year into this initiative, we are learning new ways to partner with congregations as they connect with each other and the neighbors in their communities. We have learned the value of deep listening to what our neighbors actually want, rather than what we think they need. We call this practice sitting a spell. It came out of a recognition by a group of our lay leaders that sitting a spell was a necessary part of community work, based on training from the Texas Rural Leadership Program.
For most of my life, I was in a hurry. Since retirement, I've become a lot more intentional about slowing the pace through early morning walks. On one of my routes, I encountered the same man several times, sitting on his front porch, reading the newspaper, drinking coffee. At 6:30 a.m., it took us a while to do more than grunt, "Mornin'." One morning I stopped. We shared coffee and lives. One stop turned into weeks and years of coffee and talk. We soon realized that we'd lived in the same town, but had very different experiences because of race, education, income. We lived in communities that were and are isolated by invisible walls. Our talks were tearing down some of those walls. Taking the time to sit a spell has given me a new perspective on life in my community. I'm more passionate about my work towards social justice, and I'm more intentional about my walk with Jesus. My invitation to you is to take time to sit a spell and listen to each other's stories.
For years, we worked to bridge the gap between our families who were on campus Monday through Friday at St. Thomas Early Learning Center with those who were worshiping at St. Thomas Church on Sunday mornings. It wasn't until a staff member from the church began being an authentic presence at morning drop-off with school families that we noticed more and more families from St. Thomas Early Learning Center from the school showing up to St. Thomas Church on Sunday mornings.
And we learned it isn't always the traditional programming, but instead an invitation to be part of a community. By listening to the families, we have a better idea of their needs and the type of community they are searching to be part of in Bryan-College Station. Young families want to walk into a place where their chaos is welcomed.
The work of an area missioner sounds a lot like the work of a deacon, doesn't it? An area missioner is serving a broad geography, like an entire convocation, as an extension of the Mission AMP team. Meanwhile, deacons around the diocese are also working to connect lay members of the congregations they serve to the needs of their local communities. We know the ministry of our deacons is essential to congregational vitality as they fulfill their call to be the bridge between the church and our neighbors. When they dismiss us at the end of our liturgy, they charge us to go out and be the church outside our walls. And they help us discern how we might serve. Carol Peterson and Charlotte Love, deacons in the Central Convocation, were an important part of this area mission work.
I am a deacon tethered to St. Philip's Episcopal Church in Hearn. I work with the Reverend Nanda Perry, who is bivocational priest and vicar. I told her at the beginning of our partnership, my presence would release her to shepherd the parish. She said as she was the shepherd, then I was the sheepdog. I think that's a good analogy of our relationship. Working in Hearn has been a journey. The first 3 years, I chose to live in public housing in Hearn to better understand the community. I went in thinking I understood poverty, but I soon learned my neighbors did not consider themselves poor. During my time in public housing, I experienced firsthand what it feels like to be stereotyped and not seen as a human being. When someone thinking I was in need tossed me a meal and jumped back in their deluxe vehicle to race off to the next good deed. As a parish, we have set our priorities to be in relationship with those we walk with. When we deliver a meal, we know each person's name and even the dog's name. We have time for a chat and even to pray with them if they ask us to. Concurrently, I'm working with Episcopal Health Foundation, Transformation Out of Poverty, cohort in Bryan-College Station to form a coalition with other faith communities and neighborhood partners. I learned in Hearn it takes a village to address hunger and poverty. I am looking forward to seeing this happen on a broader scale in Bryan-College Station.
Diocesan staff and parish clergy play an important role in identifying and developing lay leaders. But well-formed, faithful lay leaders go on to raise up more. They replicate. The work the leaders do together is what we mean by lay-led and clergy-supported ministry. The Vacation Bible School and summer camp projects, started by San Mateo in Houston, for example, couldn't have ever gotten off the ground without clergy buy-in and participation. But it is the lay volunteers who are spending whole weeks of their time nurturing children and youth in the Christian faith. In 2021, they welcomed 25 children and 30 volunteers from a number of Hispanic congregations for shared formation and fellowship.
La Escuela Bíblica de Vacaciones es un programa evangelístico dirigido mayormente a niños y niñas de kindergarten a quinto grado. Le llamamos evangelístico porque el principal objetivo es presentar y enseñar en medio de diversión, música, bailes, manualidades, cuentacuentos y juegos el Evangelio de Jesús a las vidas de los niños y niñas y sembrar en ellos la semilla de la fe que seguro germinará para bendecir sus vidas y sus familias. Poniendo en práctica nuestro texto lema en Proverbios 22:6, instruye al niño en el camino correcto cuando sea pequeño, para que cuando sea grande no se aparte de él. En el año 2021, pese a los desafíos que todos enfrentamos por la pandemia mundial, la Iglesia Episcopal San Mateo llevó a cabo este programa en forma presencial, ya que el año anterior, en el 2020, lo hicimos de manera virtual. Quisimos sacar a los niños y niñas de sus casas, ofreciéndoles un lugar seguro, siguiendo todos los protocolos de bioseguridad, para que los padres también se sintieran tranquilos. Este programa se realizó una semana completa en verano y el último día, gracias al apoyo de varios patrocinantes, pudimos llevar a los niños y niñas al Museo de los Niños de Houston. Cuidamos cada detalle para darles la oportunidad a que tuvieran una experiencia maravillosa e inolvidable y que estamos seguros les acompañará por el resto de sus vidas.
Our mission was to plant the seed of God's word in the minds and hearts of the participants, so that when they are older, they could grow up to become the leaders of our church, as well as devout Christians. Our mission does not stop there. From the hyper-ecstatic teenagers walking through the halls of the church with the kids, to the shy parents preparing the snacks, VBS not only plants the seeds in children, but waters the seeds already planted in each volunteer. We all learn and grow together. With meticulous planning and God's grace, we were able to plant a marvelous seed and memory in the lives of everyone who participated, with the focus that the Episcopal Church welcomes you.
You often hear young people referred to as the future leaders of the church. I am quick to jump in to say that children, youth, and young adults are leaders of the church already. Whether it's serving in worship, offering a stewardship reflection, or serving as delegates to diocesan council, the mission and ministry of the church is enlivened and renewed by the energy and imagination of young leaders. Because we know that developing leadership in the church is a lifelong endeavor, a task force gathered in 2020 and 2021 to study best practices for confirmation that kept youth engaged. There was already a lot of great formation happening around the diocese, and the pandemic has encouraged us to learn new ways to do the ministry of discipleship. As congregations began regathering, the bishops resumed confirmations. The number of people affirming the commitment to the church made at their baptism is heartening. It's not just exciting, but essential for new church plants as a means of gathering a community. In one visit to the Hispanic church plant in Waco, Bishop K. Ryan confirmed 8 people and received 12 more.
El Evangelio de Marcos capítulo 4 nos relata la parábola del sembrador. Jesús nos enseña que el sembrador tirará la semilla en el camino, entre las piedras, entre los espinos y en buena tierra. He sido enviado como un plantador de una nueva iglesia en Waco, Texas. He tirado la semilla en los lugares antes mencionados. El mensaje se ha proclamado en medio de la pandemia COVID-19 y sus variantes. De todos es conocido los estragos que ha causado a la humanidad. Sin embargo, Dios en su infinita bondad nos ha permitido que el mensaje de salvación haya sido escuchado por un grupo importante de personas. Ellos han escuchado y aceptado el mensaje de salvación. He realizado 3 bautismos, 8 primeras comuniones y 9 personas fueron confirmadas y 12 recibidas. Mi esperanza para esta nueva misión es que continúe creciendo en sabiduría y gracia a nuestro Señor Jesucristo, así como recibir el apoyo de nuestra diócesis de Texas para que estos nuevos miembros permanezcan firmes en nuestra querida Iglesia Episcopal.
As the diocese becomes more multicultural and multilingual, our goal is to raise up a diverse group of ordained clergy and missional lay leaders to serve at the congregational and diocesan level. We are intentional about deploying planters to reach a broad range of communities. In 2021, we sent forth a planter who we hope will gather an Asian American Pacific Islander congregation. We're also intentional about supporting existing congregations in forming new leaders. While the Mission AMP team is thinking about how traditional pathways to leadership can be expanded or modified beyond their monocultural history, one of the most successful lay leadership development offerings is already bursting at the seams. The Hispanic Lay Leadership Conference began in 2012, and now in its 11th year, approximately 250 participants, presenters, and support staff will gather in June for workshops, presentations, worship, and fellowship, all in the service of preparing leaders to live into their vocations within and beyond the church. The energy and momentum of this event is a gift of the Holy Spirit, and it is working. Some of those who come for the first time as participants go on to become workshop presenters, fostering a spirit of collaboration and possibility. Many of those helping to put the conference on are young adults, giving them a way to serve and develop skills they can use in their home churches as well as their workplaces.
Asisto a la iglesia hace 14 años, llevo 10 años en diferentes ministerios, pero el año pasado estuve de voluntaria con una farmacia local y pudimos vacunar 800 personas. Esto me transformó como líder porque pude ver que es muy satisfactorio poder contribuir para la sociedad, nuestra sociedad hispana, nuestra sociedad de fe y nuestra comunidad en general. Creo grandemente que aportar es muy hermoso. Esto me ha convertido en una persona más empática con todos los demás y estoy muy feliz de estar acá.
Sí, yo creo que estas conferencias laicas de veras son muy bienvenidas para nuestra comunidad, puesto que nosotros ahí vamos reconociendo lo que somos, vamos teniendo un sentido de pertenecer a una iglesia específica, que es la Iglesia Episcopal aquí en los Estados Unidos.
Sí, sabemos que a través de los diferentes talleres que a veces se dan para lectores, para ministros eucarísticos, conocer más cómo es el movimiento de la iglesia y nuestra participación activa que cada uno podemos tener, porque los laicos somos muy importantes en la iglesia. Tenemos los diferentes puntos de vista, como hasta de un simple canto hay tanta diversidad como se interpreta, igual los ministerios.
No one, clergy or lay, is sustained in ministry without a solid foundation of faith. For most people, that means developing a spiritual rhythm or rule of life, interrupted from time to time by mountaintop moments that recharge and renew. I've spoken of some of these, but what about the less visible practices of faith formation? Leaders working full-time in the church have all sorts of opportunities to refocus their attention on God. It can be more challenging for those in vocations outside the church, especially for those who may not be connected to a congregation, now or ever. Thanks to the generosity of the Great Commission Foundation, the Middle Way Urban Monastery opened in 2021 to address this very need.
Spiritual directors sometimes hear stories from people saying they feel disenfranchised from church, not just Episcopal, but all church, and for a variety of reasons, as well as across all demographics. In 2019, at a gathering of local spiritual directors, including people from all three Episcopal churches, as well as Lutheran, Methodist, Presbyterian, and United Church of Christ, we heard a report on the study of religion in America. Bottom line was that more than 100 million people in the United States say they are not affiliated with church and don't want to be. Yet the majority of these people also say that they believe in God and pray. In Brazos County alone, that meant about 135,000 people have no religious affiliation and aren't really looking, though they do somehow long for God. That's at least half our county's population. As spiritual directors, we know that community is important in formation and growth. So with a strategic mission grant, we created a place in downtown Bryan for those who feel disconnected from religion, as well as for churchgoers who seek something deeper. We call it Middle Way Urban Monastery. Our mission is to provide space for those seeking hope, comfort, and peace as they explore ways of experiencing God's love. It's operated both in the physical location as well as virtually throughout various social media platforms 100% by volunteer spiritual directors and other people who offer simple hospitality to visitors who come seeking God.
These are just a few of the ways that the Diocese of Texas is strengthening and forming leaders, most of whom will live out their lay vocations in new and creative ways beyond the walls of the 21st century church. Transformed leaders transform the world around them. I started with the Poverty Transformation Cohort offered by EHF, but that is only one of many lay-led projects leading to change in their neighborhoods. Campus ministry is another place outside the traditional church building where the diocese has seen expansion and transformation. We've added a new part-time campus missioner at the University of Mary Hardin Baylor, and the campus groups at Prairie View A&M and University of Houston Downtown both became official organizations on their campuses. Last year, we reported on the mental health initiative developed by the UT Austin Campus Mission, which has increased its reach to other EDOT campuses this year. In addition to connections with over 80 students, Texas A&M Canterbury has reached out to essential workers on campus, as they have done work with EHF and the Central Convocation Area Missioner. Sam Houston State University has also seen growth of their campus ministry, which is even more impressive considering that the ministry is led by a layperson, part-time. One reason for their growth? A commitment to ensuring that no student on campus would go hungry during the economic insecurity of the pandemic.
I began this journey myself as a student and have worked with other students to grow and form a diverse community within Sam Houston. These students have been dedicated to loving their neighbor and learning about what it means to be a follower of Christ in an intense world. These students braved Winter Storm Uri to serve their community. Huntsville had no power or water for almost 7 days, and the university was closed. Thanks to my friends and the Holy Spirit, we gave away all the supplies that we had on hand. On Fat Tuesday 2021, we fed over 75 people and gave away gallons of water and ensured that people would not go hungry. That following Friday, we did the same, and since that day, it has become a mission of our student center to tackle food insecurity on campus. We now stock a community fridge through the generous donation of St. Stephen's in Huntsville and our other partners, Holy Innocents. That fridge contains sack lunches prayed over by each of our students, and soon we will open a section that provides canned foods and hygienic items. Our community at Sam Houston has grown to include students from all levels of society who want to know, love, and selflessly care for others. We're the only LGBTQ+ affirming Christian student organization on campus and continue to provide a place of refuge, showing love to students as they are, despite harassment and vandalisms and attempted break-ins. These students are here to be a community of love, passion, and dedication to the others around them.
In addition to all the ministries that emerged outside of our walls, the pandemic created opportunities for lay-led worship, such as daily morning prayer or Compline services online. Even when churches met in person, new worship expressions began to emerge. Church of the Holy Apostles in Katy created a new family service that is organized by a lay leader who also preaches. St. Clair's in Tyler, led by an Iona student on the bivocational priest track, volunteered to try the new inclusive language liturgies developed by the Diocesan Liturgical Commission. This season of pandemic has offered an opportunity for all of us to reflect on what is important in our lives, what we should continue, what new things we might want to take on, and what isn't working for us anymore. It's also been a time to discern what God has in store for this next season. That's true for each of us individually, for congregations, and for ministry at the diocesan level as well. The Mission AMP team has been doing this hard work of reimagining. We made a list of all the things we'd worked on in the last year, and I confess it felt like much less than we were called to do or had done before. We had let go of a lot, but we did what was important. We continued to plant new churches and expand our campus mission work. We continued to train missional leaders. We continued to reach out to congregations, large and small. We worked to diffuse tension and facilitate conversations. We shared ideas with colleagues around the church. We keep reflecting on how we need to adapt to support you in your ministry. I invite congregations to reach out to the Mission Amp team for support with your own reimagining. Sometimes you just need a fresh pair of eyes. Whatever lies ahead, I speak for the whole diocesan staff when I say we are here to bring our fresh eyes to your discernment, our listening ears to your ideas, and our open hearts to your needs and those of your neighbors. We've made it this far together, and we look forward to continuing the journey with you.